I chose was Cohen versus Brown University, 101F 3D, page number 155. The case was heard on April 1st, 1996, and was decided on November 1996. Introduction to the case. In 1991, Brown University cut the funding for 4 varsity teams at the school, including women's volleyball and gymnastics. But they also cut the men's water polo and the golf. But the plaintiffs alleged that the cuts were discriminatory because women were already underrepresented in sports at the university. Title IX lawsuit was filed in 1992 by female student athletes at the Brown University. The university claimed that they were complying with Title IX by cutting the same number of men's and women's sports, which that do not comply with Title IX at all. Just because you cut 2 things from women's sports and 2 things from men's sports don't really mean you're still complying with the Title IX. As we'll see later on throughout the case review and stuff, and the information I'm going to provide, we're going to see how they don't comply with Title IX at all. Excuse me. The parties that were involved are the plaintiffs, Amy Cohen, and the other female student athletes. And defendants are Brown University, the president and the athletic director at the school as well. What is the lawsuit about? It was a class action lawsuit against Brown University that discriminated against women in its athletic program. The lawsuit claimed that Brown University downed its women's gymnastic and volleyball team from varsity to club status, which prevented the women's team from competing equally with men. Which this right here shows how, as we said previously in the last slide, just because they thought they were complying with Title IX because they cut the same amount of sports for men's and women's, but they didn't say they downed them to a club team status, which that just showing how you're not complying with Title IX, not making things fair and equal. So Title IX, what is Title IX? Title IX is a federal law that prevents sex discrimination in schools and other educational programs that receive federal funds. It relates to sports by giving equal treatment and meeting the interest for both men's and women's sports. They didn't meet anything for the women's sports side, obviously, as we can see. That's why we're talking about this case right now. The men's side, they lost water polo and golf, which, probably not the biggest sports at the school, but still something lose from the school. But they didn't mention at all that the teams got lowered down from varsity to a club team, like the women's teams did. So how did the Brown University actions violate Title IX? The university violated Title IX by discriminating against women's athletes and their athletic programs, and they also failed to give an equal opportunity for the female athletes. As I've been saying before, they did not give them equal opportunity. They just said they complied with Title IX, just bumped down the team to a club team, and didn't give them a fair chance at all, and just said forget them. So the legal arguments. The top part is Cohen and the female athletes' arguments, and the bottom part is Brown University's defense against their arguments. So first, they stated that they stereotyped that women are less athletic than men, and this statement is crazy. That the school, try to say that women are not athletic as men, which you just going down to women like that in the school, that's not going to make the school look good at all. That's not going to help you in this case at all either as well. So they discriminated against women based on gender, as we can see already from some of the facts we gave already. They didn't you know, or we can go based off from the last one. They stereotype women that are less athletic than men. You know, they just basically discriminating against them, making them feel less of themselves. They reduced the funding and support for women's sports at the university, which violates Title IX. They just bumped down the team from varsity to club, but the men's team, they supposedly said they took away. You know, they didn't say they bumped them down to a club team. You know, as I said before. So, in the Browns University, in their defense, they argued that they complied with Title IX, which, as we stated before, or plenty of times, that they didn't comply with Title IX at all. We showed that how they broke it plenty of times, actually multiple times. We also argued they also argued that women lack the same interest in sports as men do, which, how are you just going to assume that, women just don't have any type of interest in sports at all? That's not complying with Title IX at all. Basically what you're saying is we just should have a men's team and then let the women's team be how they're, whatever. Basically not even have one at this point. That's what they're trying to say. They also argued that they would have to cut women's teams due to budget limitations. So if that was the case, why did you only cut from the women's team and not from the men's team? I think with them lowering them down to a club team, you probably gave them a lower budget for the team, giving the school more money, and they probably dishing that money out to the men's team, giving them a boost, which do not comply with Title IX at all. So in the court decision, they ruled in favor of Cohen and the female athletes. That Brown University violated Title IX and ordered the university to plan to comply with the law. The court also found that the Browns' two-tier system in intercollegiate athletics failed to treat the athletes equally. To think that the school had a two-tier system, also shows that they didn't care about the women's athletics at all in the school, which shows that how, it's just a bad look on the school as itself. Basically what they're saying is the men's is a tier 1 and women's are tier 2. So, as they said before, they needed there was a limitation in the budget, a budget limitation. So obviously, they would want to take away from the tier 2, not from the tier 1. Obviously they got the women in the tier 2. As they show right here. How did the court apply to Title IX principles to Brown University athletic programs? The court found that the university actions affected the female athletes, which, me personally, if I, came and then they said they moving our team down from varsity to a club team, I would feel some type of way too about that. My feelings would be hurt, and I would wonder why us, especially from a female perspective, they would probably just, that's why this case right here, right now, because it's not complying with Title IX, it's breaking the rules of Title IX. They also ruled that the Browns' actions failed to address the needs for female athletes. They did not, care about their feelings at all. They didn't, ask if they can do this, they just straight up just did it, and then didn't really care about their feelings at all about it. They also ruled that the actions failed to expand opportunities for the female athletes and failed to ensure equal treatment for the female athletes. Both of those are, there was no equal treatment at all throughout this whole case, throughout this whole thing for the school. They tried to say before they took away from both by cutting the same number of men's and women's sports, but as I said before, they didn't bump them down to They didn't bump it down to a club team, not making them feel less of themselves, not, worried about their feelings and stuff like that. What remedies and changes did the court mandate for the Brown University? The court ordered Brown University to create a plan to comply with Title IX. So after, going through the facts throughout the case and all that, they had to come up with a plan to, actually comply this time with Title IX. Before they said they thought they were complying with Title IX when the whole time they was not complying with Title IX at all. Probably broke every rule possible for this. So yeah, hopefully, they comply this time. The impact on gender equity in sports. How did the case influence the interpretation of Title IX and its application in college sports? After this case, the university established a standard for how schools should comply with Title IX in athletics. Not the way Brown University handled things. Excuse me. There was a ruling that said the preceding schools that cannot discriminate based on gender in the athletic programs. So basically what Title IX is, you can't, go based off of just gender. So say, as they stated before, let's go back. They argued that women lack the same interest in sports as men do, which, that's breaking Title IX rules right there. You're just basically assuming that they don't want to have a sports team at all. They don't even like sports. So the court also ruled the schools to make the following Title IX. They ordered them to follow Title IX and to move the women's sports team back up to a varsity. I feel like in the first place they should never even had to move the school down to a club team, but this probably was for a money thing at that time. And then this is also showing other schools, what to not what to do with their women athletics. Treating them the same way as they do with the men athletics. In conclusion, Brown University obviously violated Title IX, and they were wrong for discriminating the women's sports. They shouldn't have moved the women's sports team to a club team, and should never did them the way they did in this whole case. They treated them wrong. Nobody should ever be treated like this, especially as a group of women. They should never be treated like that. Everybody should be treated equal and the same. So the court ended up ruling in favor of Cohen and the female athletes at this university. And they wanted to take the case to the Supreme Court, but, they declined it. Obviously, going through the facts and hearing everything from the school and then from Cohen and the female athletes at the school, obviously it was leaning towards more of Cohen and the athletes. So they declined to hear the case, and Brown had to restore the women's teams to varsity status. So my overall perspective of the case, I think I like this case. It was a nice case. I'm glad it went in the court went into Cohen's decision. I'm sided with the plaintiffs. Because they did them wrong and took away their women's sports and said all those bad statements about them, basically. And, women's sports, just basically saying forget them, saying, just making them feel like low, as, they had tiers in the school system, which that's wrong too right there. As a university, you shouldn't treat your women's sports that way, and, you should want to treat your women's sports and men's sports equally and fair and have them, all feel good and great about themselves. That's when Title IX comes in that. If you take away something from a men's team, vice versa, make him, do it to the other team, make them feel equal. And I also would I would be upset too if Wilmington had took away, something from the football team, making us feel less of ourselves, and then, just moving us down to a club team and just left all the other sports teams like basketball, wrestling, track, and made them just let them be, put us down to a club team. I would, feel some type of way about that. And here are my resources. Thank you.